C.S. Lewis, in his book Letters to Malcolm Chiefly on Prayer, made this comment. They tell me, Lord, that when I pray only one voice is heard, that I am dreaming, you are not there, this whole thing is absurd. Maybe they're right, Lord. Maybe they're right. Maybe there is only one voice, and there are not two. But Lord, if there is only one voice, it's not mine, it's yours. I'm not dreaming, you are the dreamer, and I am your dream. I'm not dreaming, you are the dreamer, and I am your dream. If you really want to become the dream of God, become a man or a woman of prayer. Read great books on prayer. Practice the presence of Christ in your life. Before you face a world that is so tough out there, you have to be able to translate it in your dependence on God. You know, every now and then in some of my meetings, I'll meet up with somebody who is an icon of our times in the entertainment world. And I have come to the conclusion they're amongst the loneliest people in the world. They have all the adulation of the masses, but inside they are totally broken, totally broken. I sat purposely, I don't sit much in front of a television because I'm a reader more than a viewer, but I purposely sat and watched the entire Whitney Houston funeral. Because I think she was a woman of incredible talent, destroyed by a man who got her into habits that took her down the spiral. She lived in Atlanta for a long time, not far from where we live. Every now and then we would go, for all kinds of things. But life fell into the hands of one individual. And she was a woman of such brilliant singing voice that comes along only once, maybe every 30, 40, 50 years. To watch that coffin being wheeled away and her mother following it, just saying, my baby, my baby, my baby. And the broadcaster gave one line and said this, it's a mother's greatest fear. And ringing out through the rafters was her voice, I will always love you. What went wrong? What went wrong? Her bodyguard said the first thing she always packed was her Bible. Carefully marked, worn, battered. Something of her childhood longed to have this truth in her life, got messed up in the presence of people who ultimately ruined her. Ruined her. One person can do it. A little crowd can do it. And so what I say to you is this, you will ultimately be shaped by the one in whose presence you spend the most meaningful times. Most meaningful times. Your prayer life is going to be the most important thing so that when those who try to unshape you and take you along the corridors of a self-destructive lifestyle, you have entered into those relationships on the basis of being in the presence of one who has strengthened your inner being, so that you can recognize what's happening. The problem with most of us when we go wrong is it takes us too long to recognize what's being done to us. And so I see, and I remember getting up, I was all alone in the home, my wife was away, and watching that casket being put into a car, and here she was in her 40s and the life gone. I thought, my word, my word. You can read this, you can memorize it, and I tell you what, your destiny is going to be determined by how you spend your time in His presence. Pathos for His people, the proximity, He has prioritized the mission by prayer. Thirdly, how He pondered in proximity to the world He tried to build the wall. He went close and saw the ruins. You know, so often we in the church are so far away from the people who really need us to get close. So far away from them. We really need to be close to the ones who need his message. How you do it without compromising your convictions is going to be your challenge. But that you do it is going to be important. I say to you, understand your friends' questions. Hear what it is they are coming from, why it is they are asking these. You see, a person may ask about the problem of evil philosophically, but it may be that that person has experienced such grief and such disappointment and such tragedy that it is no longer a philosophical question, it's an existential question to them. It's an experiential question to them. You have to know where to blend between the argument and where to blend between the relationship. It's a tough job for me as a Christian apologist to bear that in mind. You have to ponder in proximity. You have to enjoy the reality of felt questions, not just questions that are purely theoretical. I love to go into arenas because I love to listen to people. I love to hear them. In a few weeks, I'm going to be in one part of the world I have never ever been in before. It's one of the most hostile to the gospel. I can't even name the country for you. We're in the process of working through the visas, working through the arrangements, working through the details. And who knows what comes of an assignment like that. But I want to get close. I want to get close. I want to be eyeball to eyeball and hear the question, what is it you really have against Jesus Christ? And when you get close, you will find results will come. Because when they get close to you, they see in your very eyes the reality of your care, your compassion, and your courage. I remember being with one of the founders of Hamas. This is public knowledge because I wrote about it. I'm talking about being in Jerusalem. And I was with the former Archbishop of Canterbury, and he took 5 of us to meet with these leaders from both sides, the Israeli side, the Palestinian side. It was a tough trip. We were worn out. We were exhausted. On the last day, we were asked to meet with one of the founders of Hamas. His name is Sheikh Talal. Solidly built guy. I would never argue with him in the dark at any time. He could make mincemeat out of me within 30 seconds. But I was in his home, and I knew they would honor and respect it, and the room was full of tobacco smoke as they were discussing. And finally, the Archbishop of Canterbury gave the 5 of us a chance to ask him one question each. I asked him mine. I won't repeat what my question was. I didn't like his answer. I said, Sheikh, your answer is very, very unconvincing. I said, I'm not impressed with your answer. I said, well, let me tell you this, because you and I may never see each other again. I said, not far from here is a mountain, upon which Abraham went 5,000 years ago. And he took his son and was about to sacrifice his son when God stopped that knife from coming down. Remember what God said? He stopped. He didn't know. I said, let's not argue about which son it was. I said, do you know what God said when God stopped his hand? He said, no, he shook his head. I said, God said, stop, I myself will provide. He said, yes. I said, Sheikh, very close to where you and I are sitting 2,000 years ago, God kept that promise. And he took his own son, and this time the axe did not stop. Did not stop. I said, Sheikh Talal, I said to you, I'm going to see you again. But until you and I receive the Son God has offered, we will be offering our own sons and daughters on the battlefields of this world for land and position and power and prestige. He looked at me and stared at me. Nobody said anything. The Archbishop said maybe we should head back to our hotel. I thought, brother, I've done it. And as we were approaching the top of the stairs from his home, the Archbishop put his arm around me and said, Ravi, that was of God. I said, I sure hope so. We walked down, and and the Archbishop was the chief guest. We were sort of part of the hoi polloi, we were nobody. But the Sheikh followed me. I said, I'm going to get it. It's solid now. I have 2 metal rods in my back with major back surgery. Anybody who hugs me hard can leave me permanently paralyzed, so I don't like a hard hug. And as I was walking, I thought, this is either going to be a backbreaker one way or the other. And he walked over towards me and he took me by the shoulder. He slapped me pretty hard. It was supposed to be quite affectionate. And then he kissed me on both sides of my face. He looked at me with moist eyes and he said, Mr. Zacharias, you're a good man. I hope I see you again someday. Patted me again and walked away. You know what? When the sun has finally set on my life, that will be one of the memories I will always treasure, because I was eyeball to a man whose worldview was completely different to mine. But I had the privilege of sharing with him the love of Jesus Christ. I got close enough to that man. Friends, get close to the ones who need it most, but never compromise on your convictions or your behavior. Don't cross that line. And so you feel the pathos for the people, you prioritize your mission by prayer, you ponder in proximity. And the fourth thing that you need is, you will know what is the process of your preparation. You must know that. I sometimes hear people who want to become apologists, but they say, can you give me some kind of a crash course in this? I say, if I give you a crash course, you will crash. You can't get a crash course in profound answers. You have to take the time. So I'm asking you, are you doing your reading? Are you doing your research? Are you doing your understanding of what the questions really are? How to deal with the problem of evil? How to deal with the problem of suffering? How to answer the questions that are there, the problem of exclusivity and all of this. They are very real questions. It takes time to prepare. You have to have a process by which God prepares you. Jesus himself, we know very little about the so-called silent years. Paul was gone for 3 years. Moses was gone for 40 years. All of them were being prepared by God. Preparation involves time, hard work, and discipline. It is the way God has shaped you and me. Fifthly, it will avoid the paralysis of pessimism. Don't give up hope. It's tough, but please do not give up hope. Don't give up. I get letters from all over the world, from people who were so hostile at one stage, whose lives were dramatically altered. I got a letter from a man in prison in Detroit, and he wrote to me. I still keep it on my BlackBerry. And he said to me, Brother Zacharias, I feel I should write this letter to you. He said, while I've been in prison, I've been listening to your radio program, and the chaplain even gave me your books. He said, I have come to know Jesus Christ as my Savior through your ministry. He said, I'm wanting to write to you for 2 reasons. Number 1, to thank you for doing what you are doing. It's helping people like me. He said, but number 2, you'll have to forgive me for this, he said, but by your accent on the radio, I thought you were Scottish. My apologies to all of you from Scotland. He said, and then your name, Robbie. Until I saw it in a book, it said Ravi. But I thought it was Robbie. He said, so your accent and your name were, I thought it was Scottish, and he goes on. He said, when I found out you were from India, he said, I was shocked. He said, you see, I am in prison for murdering a convenience store man who was an Indian. And he said, what but the grace of God could have brought an Indian's voice in the airways to tell me that I could become a child of his. And he said, I've wept over this, and I want to ask your forgiveness too for what I did. But it's only the grace of God that could have done this in a person's life. I want you to know we see stories like this again and again and again. How beautiful are the feet of them that bring the gospel of good news. How beautiful is the conversion story of people when you hear it again and again and again. I could tell you so many of these that take place. One of them, a very senior official in a highly anti-theistic country, who asked me to pray after a 3-hour conversation and said, I'd never prayed in my life before. I'd never heard anybody pray before. You're the first man I've ever heard pray. Please don't have the paralysis of pessimism. And lastly, he brought peace for the people.